Check out the perks I've got over on Patreon, and a big thank you to the patrons who allow this video to happen, including the big patron of the month, the Nerd Therapist. Hey Pokemon Masters, Berkey here, and recently I've been playing a heck of a lot of Pokemon Ruby on the Game Boy Advance. That's right, Pokemon Ruby, not Omega Ruby, not any of the new games. Classic Pokemon Ruby. This DS is messed up. Look at that. I had to rip the button off just to get this old tech to work. I've been going back, I've been playing some of the older games, and I am absolutely addicted. And granted, nostalgia plays a big part of it. But also, I think there's legitimately some great features in older games that are not in current games. So for today's video, let's preface this idea. I, as a long-term fan of Pokemon, am asked by Game Freak and the Pokemon Company to come in, to sit down with them and talk to them about all of the things that I think make a perfect Pokemon game. Not my hopes for Pokemon Sword and Shield specifically, not my hopes for any particular sequel or big Pokemon game that combines all the region. I am asked what features from across the whole franchise would I combine together to make the ultimate Pokemon game. I give them that pitch, and despite the fact that I am a 25-year-old man and not the target audience that they are going for anymore, they listen and they implement everything that I suggest into a game. Well, that's what this video is about, but of course you are all Pokemon fans as well, so if you have some thoughts as to the things that will make for a perfect Pokemon game, if I don't mention them here, I want to see them in the comments. Maybe between us we could brainstorm the best Pokemon game ever, and Game Freak might even, maybe there's the chance they would see this one day, and implementing a few of these old classics back into the mainstream of today. So starting off, right off the bat, something I've been passionate about in the past. In the early stages of the game, your rival. I'm not going to go too much into the story arc and the story writing of the games, or talk about specific characters that I want to see, or any of that. But your rival, fundamentally in a Pokemon game, should be an actual rival, an adversary. For me, friendly rivals like Hau just don't work as rival. They are fine, fun characters, but they're essentially just another version of you in the games. In Pokemon Sun and Moon, Galadion is a much better rival because his position and his thoughts about training Pokemon are opposed to yours, and the view of the game makers hopefully is that you should treat your Pokemon with love, affection, friendship, and that his view is that you need to push them to the limit. This of course makes you think of Blue and Silver, the original rivals from Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, and Gold, Silver, and Crystal. These rivals were tough, kind of like Paul as well from the anime, and their view and stance of Pokemon is that you need to push them and make them hard, and they're gonna be strong. And if they're not strong, if they're weak, then they get thrown out. If your rival has a view that is opposed to yours, it makes it more satisfying when ultimately at the end of the game you overcome them. Your view of treating your Pokemon well and becoming attached to them was in fact the correct one. It becomes even more satisfying when they have a Pokemon like Golbat, which evolves into Crobat in the post-game because they learnt a lesson from you to treat their Pokemon with friendship, which of course is how Golbat evolves. So have your rival not think and feel the exact same thing as the main character. And speaking of that post-game, there does not need to be a whole other region. I know people loved Gold, Silver, Crystal, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver for having the Kanto region as an entire post-game, and that's great. It was a lot of fun, but you don't even need all of that. Fire Red and Leaf Green had the Sevi Islands, and Generation 3's Emerald had the Battle Frontier. These were big explorable areas that helped flesh out the game afterwards. The idea was it was a reward for completing the game, for finishing the main story, that you get access to something you didn't even know was really a thing. The Battle Frontier was by no means a whole new region, it was just one new area, but there were plenty of explorable little bits. I remembered an area where you had to take out a Pseudo-Wudo, and you could, I think there was a little cave in there somewhere. The Sevi Islands, you had a bunch of new islands unlocking more and more Pokemon. These post-games are important to reward the players. And here's the thing, Masuda said in an interview that the reason that the Battle Frontier didn't appear in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire was because he didn't think a big part of the player base would actually play through it. Maybe they were just too challenging. But here's the thing, when I was a kid, I didn't finish the Battle Frontier. I don't think I got a single Frontier Brain symbol. Some of my friends did, I did not, but I appreciated it all the same because it was a main new area of the Pokemon world, something for me to explore, something for me to aspire to, and as soon as I'm done with Ruby and my team there, I'm trading it over to Emerald because I want to prove myself now. The Battle Frontier was a calling card for the best of the best, and I think a decently chunk-sized post-game that isn't just narrative, but is also explorable area, that is just fundamentally important. And speaking of explorable areas, and this is the kind of thing that made me inspired to do this video, Generation 3 has Dive, and a lot of you might hate Dive. It is a very slow mechanic, and certainly if they're bringing back Dive, they're going to make it so that you move faster underwater. But I think in Generation 3 they got so close to doing something genius with Dive, having extra areas hidden underneath the map. areas that had in it grass. It's a shame that there was only 3 Pokemon that you could get in this grass, Clamperl, Chinchou, and Relicanth. But the idea of a whole underwater Pokemon ecosystem, an explorable, fleshed out world, and the moment you go underwater, you know, you've been surfing for half the game, and you're underwater and you realize that there's this whole other area filled with life under there, and that there's explorable caves. That stuff helps bring the Pokemon world alive. In the same vein, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire did something similar with soaring. Soaring high in the sky on Latias and Latias. Of course, now you would do that simply with Pokeride from Pokemon Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. The Pokeride feature, definitely worthwhile replacing HMs, and if you're having dive, you do it as a Pokeride. But soaring, where you see flocks of bird Pokemon in the sky, traveling and are getting to see the world from above. This whole picture of the Pokemon world on land, in the sea and in the sky, is a perfect way to just bring the Pokemon world to life. Another part of that was actually the Sinnoh Underground. And whether it's the Sinnoh Underground specifically and having this whole underworld to the Pokemon world, or whether it's just the secret bases aspect, which was present in also Generation 3, that level of personalization and interconnectivity with people around you was really, really cool. I spent loads of time developing my secret base, and the idea that if you utilize that feature, you could get hold of special Pokemon like Spiritomb. Again, whether it's secret bases or Sinnoh Underground, I think having one of these features, they are beloved features, and I would love to see them return. Heck, a similar smaller version of this is Mantine Surfing, and I'm not saying this is the way all surfing should be. Maybe there's a post-game that's like Battle Frontier, that in order to get there, you can either take a ship, you can fly, you can soar, or you can Mantine Surf. These things just help fill out the world. Speaking of the world and explorability, I am not going to suggest that we need an open world Pokemon game, but what we do need is little circular areas within the region. Since Generation 5, the map has essentially been a straight line where you follow it around in a circle. Even Alola, you start on one island, you start on one end, you follow it all, it's just a straight line, next island, straight line, next island, it's the same thing. Generations 2 and 3, Johto and Hoenn, they were particularly good at this. Hoenn had lots of small circular areas. It did get confusing at points, especially around the 4th and 5th gym. Trying to access Flannery's gym and where you had to go, I know, was confusing for a lot of players. But Generation 2 did it pretty good justice, actually. Having that Sudowoodo Bro okay, this is the second time I've mentioned Sudowoodo. Clearly, Sudowoodo makes it for a good Pokemon game. That Sudowoodo, that tree block right there where it is, allows you to go from Goldenrod back to Violet City, re-explore the home area now that you've got new HMs. When you come back after visiting Cianwood City and you've got Fly and Surf, you can go back to the early caves of the region, find Lapras. These little circular parts of the map allow you to re-explore areas that you've been to before, but using your new Poke Rides or HMs, preferably Poke Rides. You can discover new areas that before you looked at and you went, I wonder what's across that patch of water. Oh wait, now you can find out. But that's enough about that. I will touch on the story just a little bit. Because until Generation 3, the stories were pretty simple. Team Rocket was just a nefarious bunch of no-gooders, hanging out, causing trouble. Their motivations were pretty simple. They were Pokemon thugs, they were Pokemon criminals. Team Skull in the latest generation actually also does this really, really well. They're just out to cause trouble. They don't have big plans to do with the legendary of the region. They're not really trying to take over the world. And I think that over dramaticism where we're going to destroy the world in Generation 3, we're going to destroy the universe in Generation 4. The latest generation has ultra wormholes and Necrozma, and it's all too much. While there's aspects of that are good, Ultra Necrozma is an incredible final boss, it's too much. It's too much. Let's simplify. Pokemon villains be Pokemon villains. I'm suggesting Team Snooze, personally. And when we're dealing with this story, we don't need a dialogue box every 5 seconds. Generation 7, Sun and Moon, and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon really suffered from this. Basically, every new route, every new character, there was dialogue boxes. Show, don't tell. I want to play the Pokemon game. I don't want to read it. And when it comes to having these cutscenes, maybe less cutscenes of a higher quality, less is more. We just don't need that many cutscenes. I get the argument that the games are for kids and that kids are maybe have shorter attention spans nowadays. That's possible, but I also think that kids are pretty curious. Show them something and let them investigate. Let them discover and be rewarded for their discovery. One of the really cool things about the way that legendary Pokemon were implemented in the early games is that some of them, the only way that you would know about Ho-Oh or Lugia is through NPC dialogue, through random trainers that you may never interact with. I remember learning that the Whirl Islands was where this mysterious beast of the sea creature lived, and that they send kids there who are naughty, and it made me want to investigate the Whirl Islands to find out if the box art legendary was there. Kids are, I think, curiously minded and have a better attention span that maybe you think developing the games, but then I'm no expert. Again, I'm just a fan. Pokemon gyms. They should absolutely be rematchable. Everyone loves Pokemon gyms. I do like how Pokemon trials were implemented though. The idea of a trial mixed with a gym, the idea that there is some trial that you need to do before you can battle the gym leader, helping them solve a problem that gives you some hints towards what kind of Pokemon that they're going to use. I think that's more interesting than just a building with a leader at the end of it. Definitely gyms with puzzles are more memorable than gyms without puzzles, but the idea of a whole trial I think is really, really cool. So maybe merge those some way, and yeah, replayable gym leaders. Rematchable, and the levels of their team should scale. Not in the first run. In the first run, they should be absolutely set, but when you rematch them, they should scale to the highest level of a Pokemon in your party. It means that people can use them to grind experience if they've got a level 100 Pokemon in their party. Or, if someone wants to take a level 5 Pokemon and essentially start the game again, they could go back to the first gym and just run all the gyms in order with a team. It makes your game very, very replayable. Rare Pokemon. I've already mentioned Spiritomb, but nowadays you can complete the Pokédexes pretty easily. There should be some Pokemon, Spiritomb, Zorua, Volcarona. Pokemon that are one-offs, that are near impossible to get, that there's only one in the game or you have to do a special event. These Pokemon mean that you feel rewarded when you get them, and the same is the case for the legendaries. Generation 4 and Generation 5 are massive culprits of throwing so many legendaries into the mix. For me, the perfect number of legendaries in a generation is somewhere between Generations 2 and 3. A legendary trio, the Birds, the Beasts, the Reggies. The main legendary duo, the box arts, Ho-Oh and Lugia, Kyogre and Groudon. Maybe a third in Rayquaza here. I don't even really think it's necessary. One mythical Pokemon. Mew, Celebi, Jirachi. What about that second one? What about Deoxys? Okay, well, I'll give you this. A second legendary duo. So like Latios or Latias, or Darkrai and Cresselia. Maybe one of them could be mythical. But that is no more than 8 legendaries, including mythicals, per generation. A 3, a 2, a 1, and a 2. If you really want to have extras, then maybe when they do the Ultra version or the middle version, they can release a few more. But yeah, let's make our legendaries actual legends. Let's make them hard to get, like the Reggies, with puzzles. And some of them, yeah, some of them you might encounter as part of the stories, others maybe you don't. I'm not saying the box art one specifically, but maybe like the Latias and Latios, I think they were much better implemented in the original games than they were in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. You have to go off the beaten track to find them. You don't necessarily find them as part of the story, but you can learn about them through NPCs. It brings this air of mystery and magic to the games. And the legendaries, when you find them, should be oh so powerful. It took me 5 attempts to get this Groudon in Ruby. It was using Bulk Up, Single Slash, or Earthquake attacks were just killing my Pokemon. I had one Pokemon in my team that was even near a level where I could do damage to it, and then it was just about throwing Ultra Balls, throwing Ultra Balls, throwing Ultra Balls. Yes, it is tedious, but it is a good kind of tedious. It makes you resilient and feel really good when you don't waste your Master Ball on it. When you finally catch it, I think it feels really good. And it'll make you feel very accomplished when you complete the Pokédex. And here I think I've got a controversial opinion. There should be a reward for completing the Pokédex, sure. But if you're completing it by just transferring up all your Pokemon through Pokemon Bank, maybe the reward shouldn't be as good. Or maybe there should be a better reward for someone who completes the Pokédex just through the in-game stuff, apart from version exclusives. If they traveled around the region and seen everything there is to see and caught every Pokemon and evolved every Pokemon, I think that person is worthy of a better reward, maybe a super shiny charm. And you should get rewards for transferring up Pokemon from super old games. If you've got like the Jirachi from Pokemon Channel, or the Manaphy from Pokemon Ranger and the game somehow can register that, or even if you just got like a Pokemon that's come from the original Ruby Sapphire Emerald, which is the furthest back that you can go. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, you got given a little secret base reward, and I think that stuff is really, really cool. So more of that stuff, please. Okay, I'm really going to run through these last few quite quickly. The box system should be like Let's Go. You can access the box wherever you are. However, we should not include when you're in gyms or when you're in the Pokemon League. You should not be able to instantly heal your party or swap out for more strong Pokemon when you're doing the most challenging parts of the game. These parts of the game, that function should just be turned off, but it is convenient. When you take those Pokemon out of the box, guess what they're going to be doing? Following you. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? It adds so much magic to the games. People love it. Why does it ever go away? The actual Pokemon, how they look in the overworld, we're going to need to update some of those models. We've been seeing the same ones for a while now. And actually, with that in mind, and this is an argument I've heard from another video, can we make the Pokemon look a little bit more like their classic art? And I don't mean necessarily in the art style, so much as a lot of these Pokemon don't look like they're posing for a picture or ready to be turned into a toy or a bit of merch. Instead, they look like real creatures that are being sketched in the real world. Again, adds to that feeling of absolute immersion into the world you're creating. A veteran mode, possibly with a hard setting, I know that's something people have asked for before, or simply just have the EXP share be something that you can choose to have on or off. It's not hard to do, you've done it before, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I always turn the experience share off. If you want it on at certain points in the game, great. I just think that makes perfect sense to me. Pokemon Seals from Sinnoh and Pokemon Apricorn Balls from Johto. Small things that add a level of personalization that I really love. Pokemon Contests from Hoenn. It doesn't need to be specifically the Hoenn kind, it could be the Sinnoh kind or any other kind. But just the fact that it's an option, that it's there, that it is in the overworld, that you might spend more time in a town that doesn't have a Pokemon gym because they've got a contest and you want to prepare your Pokemon from that. It means you can take your Pokemon adventure at your own pace or go back and revisit that stuff. I think they're a fantastic addition. Seasonal rotation from Pokemon Black and White, changing up routes so that it doesn't have the same 3 or 4 Pokemon on it all the time, and depending on the season, those 3 or 4 Pokemon might change. Certainly if you've got a region where you have lots of new Pokemon and lots of older Pokemon, maybe the older Pokemon rotate out every season for different Pokemon. And yeah, different parts of routes become accessible depending on what type or time of the year it is. Pokemon in towns, like in Alola, I think seeing Pokemon integrated with human life is really, really cool, and crossover characters. I first remember really seeing this in the Sinnoh region, though I'm sure it happens before, where you see a Jasmine in the Sinnoh region. I think it's just really nice to see some old faces pop up, and I definitely like to see some, not loads, not everyone, but some old characters return. You're rewarding the people who've played the game before and adding a level of curiosity to the people that haven't played the games before. Okay, I've got 2 more for you, and this first one might split the room a little bit. Catching mechanic, similar, the same as Pokemon Let's Go. I know, some of you absolutely hate this feature, so I'm not totally sold on it myself. But to me, it adds a level of refreshment to the game that the trainers are the ones that I battle and the wild Pokemon are the ones that I have to try to just catch. It breaks up the game and makes it a little less repetitive. It makes me want to catch more Pokemon and try Pokemon that I wouldn't have tried before. And on top of that, the idea that there are some encounters, special encounters, that you have to battle them before you can catch them because they're so strong, I do like that. Maybe you could add that to even more Pokemon. Any evolved Pokemon in the wild, you have to battle them first. Or any 3rd stage Pokemon or legendary Pokemon, you have to battle them first. Definitely extend that to a few more Pokemon in the games than just like 5 or 6. But generally, I think that catching mechanic really works. But that's just me. And finally, this is my final one. When you've got that one event mythical Pokemon, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, please have an in-game event, an unlockable area accessible by a key given at an event. It is so much better than just being handed a mythical Pokemon, because just being handed one doesn't make it feel special at all. But those are just my thoughts. I did this video very differently to how I normally would. I was thinking a lot about a video I saw. Belated Media has done this video that I've watched like 5 times now, which is What If He Wrote Star Wars Episode 1. I think it's a really cool video, by the way, and I wanted to do that here. These are my thoughts about Pokemon, and the way that we could create a perfect Pokemon game in my eyes. But what do you think? Do you agree with these features, or do you totally disagree? And do you have any features that I've totally missed? Let me know in the comments below, and of course, so hi Pokemon Masters.
This is Ash Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a Pokemon Master!